Hey folks, this is BestInSlot, and in tonight's video we're going to cover the potential biomes for Jurassic World Evolution 2 and the implications those biomes may well have on our park building and our dinosaur health and stuff like that. Now, why are we talking about biomes now specifically? Well, it's because of this post right here. This was sent to Evo over on Twitter by Shindairu. Shout out to them. And they shared what they found on Facebook, which seems to be a Jurassic World Evolution 2 post, like a sponsored advertisement post. You also really need to charge the phone. wait, I've got a plan. There we go, lots of battery. Announcing Jurassic World Evolution 2, featuring 75 plus awe-inspiring prehistoric species, 5 diverse biomes, and 4 compelling modes, coming late 2021 on PC and console. And really, 5 diverse biomes is the important bit there. That's the first confirmation we've ever had as to how many biomes we're going to get in the game. We knew it was going to be at least 3, my money was on 4 based on the rock image that we saw. Some people did suggest 5, but confirmation of 5 is pretty cool. And I thought tonight we'd go through the biomes we already have and talk about some of the potential new biomes that we'll be adding to the game, because there's some interesting ideas we can play with as we discuss these things. So let's just cover the first 2 first of all, then we'll get into that a little bit more. So first up, we have the desert biome with our lovely Amargasaurus. We've got a Joshua tree over there on the side. We've got this really nice sort of sedimentary rock in the cliffs surrounding the area. We've got a dry grass. We've got a cactus. And more importantly for the future, we also have nice little emergency alert there. Thought it looked nice. We have an emergency alert for sandstorms. We know sandstorms are going to be a thing here in the desert biome. Now just keep that in mind for a second. Let's take a look at the second. This is the taiga biome. I always want to call it taiga. I'm going to call it boreal because they're the same thing. And if I get any of these plants wrong, by the way, excuse me, flora is not really my thing. I kind of just went on what I know from Planet Zoo. So we've got like a bracken, heather, pine tree, spruce trees, all this kind of jazz. And again, we already know what the natural disaster is going to be. It's going to be a snowstorm. Now, before we carry on, I want to talk about these disasters a little bit. We know that if it's anything like Jurassic World Evolution, you're going to want to shut down your park. It's probably going to stress out your guests. In the taiga, it'll probably, hopefully, cover your park in snow. You know, that's an effect we've already kind of seen. I don't know what a sandstorm would do. Maybe it can cover your park in sand. Maybe that is actually a thing. The second thing to mention before we carry on is that although Chaos Theory mode is probably going to take us back to Isla Nublar and Isla Sorna, and we know Challenge mode is going to take us all around the globe, we have heard suggestions that the campaign itself is predominantly going to take place in the US, North America, stuff like that. So I've tried to find biomes that would fit within the confines of Northern America. Let's take a look at some of the potential ones. So this is the only other one that I think is basically guaranteed, and that is our tropical rainforest, tropical lands. I was going to do a savanna one, which I actually scrapped. The second text you see there about the tree grass mix with an unclosed canopy is actually the savanna definition, so feel free to ignore that entirely. But the tropical one, of course, was already established back in Jurassic World Evolution. We had coconut palms, we had what I believe is a date palm of some description, wasn't sure which one, there's like a billion. We had Tarano palms, we have plenty of different palm trees, plenty of lovely, vibrant, tropical plant life. Now, we're assuming that the tropical has to return because although we're back on the mainland and the game is mixing things up, it's a Jurassic World game, it's a Jurassic Park game, it needs a tropical biome. But even more than that, as I've mentioned, in Chaos Theory mode, we're probably going back to Isla Nublar and Isla Sorna, and they would need a tropical biome, so it makes sense to include one in the game. This could be somewhere in Florida, for example, if you wanted it in the campaign as part of mainland US. And if I had to guess, I would assume the Twister will remain the disaster of choice. Again, we've already kind of established its presence in these tropical biomes. The game, again, needs a Twister. It's kind of just part of the franchise at this point in time, mainly because of JPOC, admittedly. So, there you go. I imagine a Twister will be the emergency alert for the tropical biome. So those 3 I'd say are pretty certain, but now I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 more ideas about what those other 2 could be, and I'll chuck out some light ones at the end as well. First on that list is the wetlands, and because obviously we don't have dinosaurs in these pics, I've drawn some for you, so there's a Spinosaurus. And a wetland is essentially a flooded area with aquatic plants. It doesn't have to be permanently flooded, but it can be flooded, it has to be flooded at some point in the year. And wetlands actually encompasses like a huge array of different biomes they could possibly include. I mean, swamps and marshes are different things, and they both fall under wetlands. But really this is the key point, it's varying levels of flooding throughout the year. Now I imagine if wetlands are going to make it into the game, and I'm hesitant on this one, this is not my favourite choice. I mean, I'd love it, but I feel that because of Jurassic World Evolution's fairly limited water system, but as I said, wetlands do have lower water levels during several times of the year, so maybe that's just the wetlands we end up with. And we've got several things in here, we've got some rushes, we've got lily pads. I think this is a cypress. It's kind of hard to tell. It's got that kind of fluffy hanging down nature which is associated with the cypress. I think the big roots are kind of hidden at the moment because this is obviously quite a deep part of the wetlands at this point in time. So I think this would be a really cool inclusion for our more amphibious dinosaurs, you know, our Spinosaurus or Spinosaurids in general. I just think it'll be difficult unless we are going to get some form of deep water tool, and I find a deep water tool unlikely because it means you then need to code swimming for the dinosaurs, and if you don't include swimming for the dinosaurs, then you've got this problem where deep water becomes like an impenetrable barrier for your dinosaurs and they can never break out, which goes, you know, just flies in the face of what Jurassic World is all about. So yeah, hesitant on this one. But if we had an emergency alert, I was thinking about this. Now, a flood or something would be the obvious choice, but I was thinking, are we going to have a Jurassic World where they fill the entire thing with water? All your guests get washed away. It would be amazing, but it seems very, very unlikely. So I thought, malaria outbreak. Make it like a higher level disease, a harder to research, expensive to cure disease. Make it spread really quickly or something like that. Maybe have like a, I don't know, an item you can build to fend off mosquitoes, or you have to destroy a certain thing. I don't know, whatever. The point was I needed something, and I went for malaria. Good old malaria. One I think is much more likely, although would be a little bit boring in terms of the foliage, is a tundra sort of environment. This would have the boreal kind of feel of that cold weather and some of the same sort of ground plants and rock types, whilst having a little bit of a feel of that shale, coastal kind of feel that we had back with Isla Pena as well. Tundra is very similar to the boreal forests, but the main difference is it doesn't really have any trees. It's got a permafrost going on, which is, you know, soil basically that's been frozen for at least 2 years, so it's very, very difficult for trees to grow. So a lot of the stuff we get is more like lichens and stuff like that. Again, it might be a bit weird to build on if you're not having any trees or any grasses, but there are, you know, many different flowers and little plants that survive in this kind of environment, and of course the rocks more than anything else would be very cool. As a Cryolophosaurus for you guys. And as a disaster, I thought fog would be a really cool one. If there's one you think is missing, it might be because we've got it later on, basically. But I thought the idea of having your tundra park, you know, imagine here you got a little, wait, let's draw it. You got a little dinosaur pen, one over here with the cryo in. I just want a Cryolophosaurus, that's all I'm saying. And but then there's really heavy mist or heavy fog sort of rolls in and cloaks your entire park, reduces visibility, which annoys your guests, again stresses out your dinosaurs, and your stressed out breaking out dinosaurs would be harder to see in your helicopter. They'd be harder to tranquilize, harder to stop breaking out and eating everybody. It would really ramp up the horror feeling and also evoke a little bit of that Jurassic Park 3 aviary scene, which I think is really cool. Following on from that, we have a prairie. Now, we already had a bunch of animals here, so instead we have a bison pretending to be it kind of looks like it's birthing an alien, but it's meant to be pretending to be a Stegosaurus. And there's several types of prairies across the US. Of course, these are... Oh, I should mention for the tundra, I think technically it would have to be in Canada, but I figure that's not really too much of a stretch. Anyways, many prairies across the US. They tend to be shorter grass prairies in the western US, if I recall correctly, and longer grass prairies towards the east, and in the middle it's kind of a mix. Again, we'd have very limited tree cover, but at least we'd have lots more grass. You can have trees in there. I believe you have to have below 10% tree cover to make it a prairie. If it's above 10%, it becomes a savanna. It's something like that. Anyways, so we'd have lots of different grasses, and there are several grasses included in these long stem prairies. I think this is a big blue stem, but I'm not sure. There's also a little blue stem, and there's a fan, or there's a big floofy one that looks super weird, I can't remember the name. The point is, there are a variety of plants you could include, and you can see in the background, you know, there are trees that we could include, there are bushes, there are flowers, and stuff like that. And I thought for a natural disaster, a proper thunderstorm. We don't need the twister, but a storm that pushes things a little bit harder than we ever got in Jurassic World Evolution. So pouring rain, big black clouds, and actual forked lightning strikes hitting all over the plains. I think that's very evocative of like the Great Plains of America. And of course that would tie in really well into the game's systems. If you have a sort of random generation of lightning strikes around your park, they could hit a fence, take the fence out, they could hit a generator, take the generator out, take a building out, blah 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 blah. You know, that would fit quite well with Jurassic World as a theme. They could hit a guest and fry them on the spot. It seems very unlikely, but would be a lot of fun. Finally, for the ones I've actually prepared, we have temperate rainforest. For an example, the Great Bear Rainforest in Canada, which I just wanted to include because the commode bear is adorable. These are rainforests, so similar to the tropical rainforests, but a whole different series of plant life. Still lots of rainfall, but the temperatures are between the sort of warmer ones in the tropical and the colder ones like the alpine and the tundra. They're temperate, and we have some compsognathus. Because why not? And now there's too many trees here, I can't even begin to pick out some species. And this is the point where I started to begin to struggle a little bit for ideas as to disasters. So I put 3 in. All 3 of these are ones that I'd considered throughout this entire video when building several different biomes. Forest fire, drought, flooding. All 3 of these are ones that hit many different biomes. You know, even the rainforest does get hit with forest fires, usually from droughts. It has disease outbreaks from droughts. Flooding, of course, happens all the time as well. I just thought about these 3 and I just thought, how does that work in the context of Jurassic World Evolution? How does a forest fire work in Evolution? How would you stop the fire spreading? Yeah, I can see a fire starting. You know, just you've got a patch of trees and it just sets on fire and it starts to spread. You've got to do something to stop it. Now, what would be cool is if you had like a firefighting team and they went out and they put the fire out, or you have to direct your helicopter to, you know, when they get the helicopters, and they basically, what they do is they strap massive buckets to the helicopter and the helicopter tips the bucket over the fire. That's literally a thing they do. But is that going to be a mechanic? Probably not, so I couldn't include it. Drought, same thing. Are they going to sap all the water from your park? I guess that's not super unlikely. It would just need to be like a textural place for the water, where it kind of deletes it, essentially. That's not... it's okay. Flooding, same thing I mentioned earlier. How are you going to flood a Jurassic World in Jurassic World Evolution? I just don't see it happening. So I'm very curious how they're going to take these varied biomes. I'm going to give him a hat. Looks like Paddington. I'm really curious how they're going to take all these biomes and apply what I hope will be unique disasters. The fact that we've already heard of 2 biomes and they each have a unique natural disaster does make me think that might be a thing. Maybe it's a more elaborate system than I expect. Maybe there's other effects in general. This is another thing I kind of wanted to talk about, but what if in your hotter climates, you know, you need temperature control of some form, your guests are more likely to want drink shops, stuff like that. Colder temperatures, the opposite. Maybe in colder temperatures, things like generators are more likely to fail, because that is very much a thing in real life. Electricity really hates the cold, basically. That could be a thing. Heavy rainfall could short things out. Maybe you need umbrellas. There's a lot of ways that biomes could tie into general functions in Jurassic World Evolution 2, but they're not functions that really existed in Jurassic World Evolution 1. So I'm very hesitant to get ahead of myself with the biome system. I'm surprised it's got 5, I'm excited about that, and I really hope they do have all these natural disasters, but I'm hesitant to kind of get too much on the hype train until we know how deep these systems actually go, if that makes sense. I don't know what they've added. We need more information, basically. There were other possibilities for sure. I was going to include a savanna, a general grassland. Now, grassland can mean savanna, it can mean many different things, but when you think of grassland, I think you tend to think of, maybe this is just me because of Zoo Tycoon 2, but I tend to think of, you know, more like a city zoo, or just like a short grass, big open plain sort of area. Kind of like in Jurassic Park when they're running away from the T-Rex with the Gallimimus. That's kind of more what I think about grassland, but a little bit flatter than that was. There's a couple of others out there, there's, you know, more types of forest and stuff like that. We could get something from, say, the Pacific Northwest, get some sequoia trees in maybe, we could get a redwood specific forest in there as well. Really, I just wanted to, as well, get the ball rolling, get people talking, you know, what ideas do you have, what biomes would you like to see in Jurassic World Evolution? There's always a chance we're not going to be limited to the US as well, which would open the door a little bit more. How would you implement the biome system? What natural disasters would you bring in along with them? How would they tie in with those biomes? It's quite difficult to think of, I promise, but give it a go. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. And from me, like if you enjoyed this video, I'll see you lovely folks tomorrow for what is hopefully a Species Field Guide day, because it is Wednesday and it's been 3 bloody weeks. So, fingers crossed. Thank you for joining me. I'll see you lovely folks next time. Cheers much love as always. Bye-bye.
Reaching out.